With version 6.1 livestream and finalized kit of Nefer after multiple beta changes, it's time to break down everything including best rotations, weapons, and teams. So let's start. Nefer is one of the first Lunar Bloom DPS who scales from elemental mastery and crit damage with a special mechanism of converting bloom cores to seeds of deceit and consumes these to do massive dendro damage. Here is her pre-farm material. So let's start by understanding how this works. Whenever you trigger a Lunar Bloom reaction, it generally forms dendro cores which blast to do damage, but in Nefer's case, these bloom cores are converted to something called Seeds of Deceit, which later is consumed by Nefer through her elemental burst and skill. Her major source of damage comes from her elemental skill doing Lunar Bloom damage, so while building her, you have to keep elemental mastery in focus, as Lunar Bloom does not scale from attack and damage bonus. Though it still counts Lunar Bloom damage bonus you get from your artifacts and weapons, you can crit, so crit stat values matter too. Coming to her weapon options, you basically have to run either crit main stat weapons or elemental mastery. Without crit weapon, try to keep above 60% crit rate and 200% crit damage. For artifact, you have to use elemental mastery sands and goblet with crit substats. Talking about her playstyle, you generally run her with another dendro and hydro unit to get maximum Verdant Dew stacks as fast as you can. After that, you switch to Nefer, press elemental skill, enter a special stance, and deal 3 hits of damage using her charged attack. This will consume all the Verdant stacks you created. After that, you press her elemental skill again, doing 3 enhanced charged attacks, and end with her elemental burst. Her burst does massive hits of damage, doing 2 extra hits of lunar damage. Keep in mind her damage is mostly considered as Lunar Bloom damage, so attack percent is mostly useless for her. Her talent priority is elemental skill, followed by elemental burst. You can skip normal attack, as the charged attack you do is considered as elemental skill. Some important tips to maximize Nefer's enhanced skill damage. You always have to run her with another Nod-Krai character. Currently, the only options are Lauma and Ino. Nefer's value drops, so she cannot be used as a Hyper Bloom carry, which leaves her as an Aggravate damage healer, and Aggravate being one of the weakest reactions, it is not recommended.
Before jumping into team options deeply, let's first understand how the mechanism works, how Lunar Bloom is different from General Bloom, how it works, and how it creates Verdant Dew stacks. Let's break everything down. When you apply Dendro and Hydro, you normally trigger the Bloom reaction. But when Lauma and Nefer are both in the party, it instead converts into Lunar Bloom. Whenever you trigger a Lunar Bloom, you gain 1 stack of Verdant Dew. But there's a catch. You can only generate 1 Verdant Dew stack every 2.5 seconds. For example, if you trigger 1 Lunar Bloom at 0 seconds, the next one that counts will only happen after 2.5 seconds. If you trigger another at 1 second, it won't count until the previous timer finishes, after another 1.5 seconds. This makes it very difficult and time-consuming to reach maximum Verdant Dew stacks with Nefer alone. This is why it's highly recommended to bring another Dendro unit or a Hydro unit with strong application in the team to keep generating cores and maintain consistent stacks. Now, how does Nefer actually work? When you use her elemental skill, she essentially locks the cores from exploding and converts them into Seeds of Deceit, which she later consumes to perform buffed charged attacks while in her skill state. Basically, whenever you have at least 1 Verdant Dew stack, Nefer's charged attacks are replaced with a special version called Phantasm Performance. Now, the second mechanism that makes her even more broken, when you enter her Ascendant Gleam stage and use her elemental skill, Senate Strategy, Dance of 1,000 Nights, all Dendro cores and Bountiful cores on the field are converted into Seeds of Deceit. For the next 15 seconds, any Lunar Bloom reactions that would normally create Dendro or Bountiful cores will instead create Seeds of Deceit. These seeds cannot trigger Hyper Bloom or Burgeon and will not explode. They're exclusive to Nefer's kit. When Nefer performs a charged attack or Phantasm Performance, she absorbs Seeds of Deceit within a certain range, gaining 1 stack of Veil of Falsehood for every seed absorbed. Once this effect reaches 3 stacks, or when the 3rd stack is refreshed, Nefer's elemental mastery increases by 100 for 8 seconds. This is the main reason why you always need to run her with another Nod-Krai member. Currently, the options are Lauma and Ino. If you do not have Lauma, use Ino, since she's free and can hold the new support set Silken Moon Serenade for extra elemental mastery and lunar reaction buffs. If you do not have Ino, then Nahida is a good option, but the damage difference is huge. Nahida provides Dendro and Hydro Resistance Shred, Lunar Bloom buffs, and personal damage scaling, which Nahida lacks. Still, she's a solid backup if you don't have Lauma. You can also run Nahida, Ino, and Zhongli, since Zhongli offers strong shielding and Dendro-resistant Shred. Keep in mind that damage bonus buffs are mostly useless for Nefer, so scroll users are not recommended.
Coming back to team setup, after you have your Dendro and Hydro unit, the fourth slot can be a healer if you do not have one, or a Hydro for Hydro damage and more application. Ino currently has no replacement, as we have only 2 Silken Move holders in the game, but if you do not have access to Ino and are running her with someone like Flins, then you can go with Kokomi or Barbara, as both of them also provide healing, or Delia if you are running Nefer with double Hydro. Xingqiu and Yelan can be played with Nefer even after her being a charge attack damage dealer with some normal attacks in between the combo. Xingqiu is preferred higher than Yelan, as she applies better Hydro in her later constellations. Here are some other team with damage numbers. You can also run her with a pyro damage dealer, especially if you have Emilie, to maximize Emilie's damage with the extra EM buffs and rest shred you get from Lauma. You can technically add any damage dealer as the fourth slot if you have enough Hydro application for Bloom reaction to occur. Here are some of my suggestions which you can keep in mind while making teams. You can use something like Instructor with your supports like Aino or Barbara, as their personal damage is none, and you can get some insane elemental mastery buffs from it. Now, talking about some of the most asked questions, first let's start with C1 or weapon. Both of them actually provide similar value, about 22 to 24% damage buffs. If you have a solid backup weapon like the new gacha weapon Frost Moon or any other 5-star choice, it's better you prefer Constellation, but the weapon can be very useful if you do not have a good option. And you can always use the 5-star stat value on any other character unlike Constellations, so if you're F2P, I would say go for the weapon. Okay, let's talk about the biggest question. When we talk about her value, she is at the same tier as Flins after the final changes with premium options such as Lauma. As said, she does fall off again like Flins if you do not have Lauma, but keep in mind her value will rise with more Nod-Krai units released. Seeing the leaks, Columbina is going to be a support in the future, which can push Nefer's damage even higher, and you can even run her with damage dealers like Nuvolette and Farina, even though Farina's buffs are mostly useless. With Lauma, she is currently top 3 or 4 around Faressa and a little above Flins in terms of DPS, so she is not a must-get DPS, especially if you already have good Dendra DPS like Kinich, or you can even run Lauma with older DPS like Alhaitham. Nefer with Lauma is similar or a little higher than Hyperbloom teams with Lauma, so she is not a noticeable damage increase if you are already running Hyperbloom with Lauma now, but she does have future potential and will do more damage in the later stage of Nod-Krai, so let me know if you're pulling or no till then.